What's up, guys? Nick Skrip here. Stick to the Script podcast on episode 10. Have a great guest on, my buddy Martin. I think I've referenced him a couple times on the shows in the past, talking about stories, talking about life and shit. 10 episodes in now, though. If you are just listening to this for the first time, be sure to check out the other episodes. If you want to skip like John's or Anthony's or somebody you don't like, that's perfectly fine. But have a lot of good shows on here so far. This is going to be a good one today. Got Martin over here rocking the P2W like a true G, and we got some good shit to talk about here today. But first off, real quick. I didn't even put this on the sheet or anything. Were you? I was at your house yesterday, having some beers. We were watching Paul versus Fury. I had my life savings on the line for that. Were you pretty happy about that outcome? You thought it was a fair outcome? Any thoughts there before we get into the show?
Well, let's start off with I think the first judge was on drugs because he gave it to Jake. But
No.
I think the decision was right. I mean, if you look at the stats, speaks for himself. So I think I did pretty good. Not as good as I thought he was going to do. I thought I was going to lay him out, but got to build up for the second one, right?
Yeah, for sure. It was a good fight. I thought it should have been three judges saying the same thing, and some people were like, "Oh, he knocked him down once. That should have been it." And I'm like,
I think
"That
that
don't
was
that
a
don't."
bullshit knockdown anyway. It's
Yeah,
questionable.
yeah, yeah. It's not like he like laid him out or something like that. But you and I, we talk about the gym all the time. I joke around. I like post on my Snapchat story, me flexing. I'm like, I'm fucking bigger than Martin and stuff. And, I try to get you going. We talk about gym stuff all the time. But you got an interesting backstory that I want to tap into because I don't know a lot of people outside of you and Frankie, which I'm not going to get into his story. But you and Frankie have an interesting backstory when it comes to the gym. So obviously not taking nothing away from you because I know it's been a big part of your life and you put in a lot of hours into the gym and it's still a big part, even with you being a dad, part of your life and stuff. But back then, there was a point where you kind of dabbled into some steroids at some point. So I want to talk about that because I don't know a lot of people. Obviously, this is before he's with his job now, before he had kids, all this stuff. So it's not like a thing now. But how did that whole thing get started? It seemed like hearing stories, there was like a lifestyle a little bit, some Jersey Shore shit, like juiced up, going to the bars and stuff. How did that whole thing get started with you kind of dabbling in that when it came to the gym?
Let's start off real quick by saying that I don't endorse it at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a crazy story actually how it all started. I mean, just back from the beginning of starting lifting is I was 16. I got jumped at my first job, and ever since that day, I was like, not me. It's not going to be me, not again. So, I started lifting, just eating a lot of food. Yeah, I was a small guy. I was like 130 pounds, like what Nick weighs right now. And so, I was really small. I started eating a lot, lifting. It actually all started with pro hormones. So back when I was 16 in 1935, it was legal. Pro hormones were legal.
Yeah.
And became this big thing with everyone at the gym. And like anything, when something's good and they make it illegal, then, you start dabbing into some other stuff. So that's pretty much what happened. I met this guy at the gym. Jersey Shore was happening. I was a big phase guy growing up,
Yeah.
skateboarding was in, I was in 100%, so when Jersey Shore came around, I was getting close to 21 and, met a guy at the gym. He told me I could look like him in a couple of months. I didn't believe him. And so I dabbed into some steroids for sure. So I was probably 20 years, 20 or 21 years old when I started. And I started big in a big way. I didn't do like no beginning cycle or anything like that. I just dabbed right into it. And I was on some pretty serious stuff for a while there. So
so when you were doing that, because a lot of people, when you talk about like juicing up and stuff, people think certain things are a certain way and they assume things while they know nothing about any of that. Did you, like, when you were on that stuff, was it just like a matter of, hey, I can lift heavier things at a sooner rate? Was it, hey, I just grow it at a faster rate than I would grow off of it? Like, what was something that you just noticed, obviously, when you were doing it, that you're like, hey, this shit's actually working, you know?
Yeah. So obviously, like I think people have a misconception of what steroids is. I think they think if you take it, you just get big automatically. I mean, all it really does is repair your muscles faster, right? So technically, if you know anything about lifting weights, you're not supposed to lift the same body type, more than once a week, technically, because your body needs to heal. All steroid does is repair it faster. So you could hit things twice a week. You could hit more exercise. So that fatigue that you feel in the middle of your set, that gets pushed back. It's almost like it doesn't exist. You could just keep going. And so you definitely still have to put in the work, a lot of work. It's not just take it and that's it. You could take it
Yeah.
and nothing will happen. So
Yeah.
you still have to put in a lot of the work. The thing that I noticed immediately with me is strength. Strength went up almost immediate.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that I would focus on back in the day, only because it was the first thing that grew on me, was my chest. My chest grew like immediately for whatever reason,
Yeah.
and my arms. So like, you know, that took off right there. And obviously strength first, but you still have to put in the hard work. I was at the gym back then. I was at the gym like 4 hours a day. It was definitely a lifestyle. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I think, and I'm not endorsing anything either, and not something I ever like dabbled in or anything either. But I see on TikTok all the time. There's these guys that they're on some sort of like juice or testosterone or gear, whatever, and you see all the comments all the time. They're like, it's only because of the gear, it's only because of the testosterone, like this and that, when in reality, like, you can take all that shit, but if you're not actually like lifting, you're not getting bigger. You're not going to get like fucking ripped just by like taking, it's not like a secret juice or anything like that.
Yeah, I
But
know. You still have to put in the work. And I think I don't understand why people hide from it. Like you said, you see those TikTokers and they won't even say that they're on. They'll just keep saying they're
no,
not, they're not. In coming from experience and seeing people, like I know what to look for in somebody when I think that they're on, and I don't know why people hide from it. Just embrace it. Like I could talk about it now. I talked about it then. The only people I lied to about it was my family and originally the
you're about to be
person I
like my family, my friends, and everybody I knew.
oh, yeah, no, just my family, just because I didn't want to feel like I was letting them down or whatever. But yeah, I just lied to them, and it wasn't until a specific event happened in my life where I think like some of them knew, but it was one of those things we never talked about. Nobody asks me to this day, but if they did, I would speak open about it.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
happened. It is what it is. And, you know,
So what, I mean, you can go into as much or little detail as you want with it, but obviously I know what happened to where, or to the reason why you stopped doing it. But can you kind of walk through what happened with you? I know it was a huge medical thing.
oh yeah. So I was trying to prep for a show, my first show ever. My trainer was actually this girl, Robin, and she was bigger than me. She's a big bodybuilder. And, so I didn't really have any like mentor or anybody tell me like what you're supposed to do or how much you should take. So, like I said, I'm just there doing what I thought was right. And, I was starting to take some clenbuterol, which is it's like a diuretic meant for diabetics, and it's supposed to like open your lungs so you
Yeah,
get more oxygen to the body. And so I started dabbing into some of that, getting ready for this show. And what ended up happening is I bought from a new supplier because I was desperate. And I just know that I was running late for the gym. So I like took a swig of this when, you're only supposed to take, the smallest amount. I ended up taking 3 times the amount you're supposed to. And essentially I gave myself a heart attack. So I just remember I was in my condo, I was by myself. I took this, I went to the gym, and I'm like, my heart's pounding. I'm like, this is not like my pre-workout, and my
like
head
that.
was pounding. Yeah. So I remember like I went home and like anything else, you're like, oh, I'm going to sleep it off, So I'm like
Yeah,
trying to sleep, and it literally sounded like Bigfoot was running around. Like I'm like looking around my room. I go in the mirror, like, this is like, pouncing. This is pouncing. I'm like, something's going on. So I call my mom, told her to come pick me up. She picked me up. Still didn't tell her what was going on. I was like, get me to the hospital. And like my heart.
Yeah.
All I remember is getting there, pulling in a lot, and I was out. I was out till the
Jesus.
next day. Strapped to all the machines, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. They're asking me what's going on, and I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what's happening. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it was pretty bad. I mean, obviously the doctors asked me, like, of course they ask already doing the blood work. They know what's going on,
Yeah. Yeah.
And also I didn't know at that time, but the person that I was with brought all my stuff to the hospital, not knowing, like, hey, this is what he's on. We don't know anything. So the hospital had all my gear, and yeah, kind of had like a little heart to heart with my mom at that moment, because she was the one that was there when I woke up, and that's it.
It's a good thing you went though, because you see, all the time something happens with somebody, they're not feeling a certain way, and sometimes they ignore it. And I'm not saying anything, but if you blacked out there at some point, or you don't remember stuff, like if you were like, fuck it, I'm just gonna like sleep this off at home or something like that, who knows how things, would be at
Oh
the end
yeah,
of the day.
if I didn't
But
call her, I mean, I probably would have. They would have found me in my condo, like,
yeah, it's scary.
8 days
Scary.
later, weeks later, whatever. I would have been done. But it's actually crazy. Is since originally when they took me in, they didn't know what was happening. They didn't know that I was on all this gear. At the time, the doctor's first, his first reaction was he thought my main artery was splitting in half.
Holy
They
shit.
told my mom nothing, because that splits, you're dead. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so they all they know is they have this 22-year-old, or no, I was 24 at the time, and it was August 12th, 2012, and I'll never forget that day. But yeah, they didn't tell her anything at first. They thought I was dying on the table, and luckily they got some beta
Jesus.
blockers in me, and here I am.
And that
Still
was it
juicy.
after that, right? No,
What did
yeah,
you say?
I was about to say that was it after that, right? You were done.
You
You were
know,
done
you
juicing.
know, I
Were
stopped
you
for a
cut
long
down?
time. And I'd be lying if I say I didn't, like, do something here and there before. Like,
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
end of the
yeah,
day,
yeah,
it all messes with your mind. So, it my advice to somebody young and new is don't do it, because
yeah.
what it does is it, like, creates this image in your head of what you need to be, and when you're not on and you start losing that, it's creates a lot of problems. So
And I think and I'm not. This is not saying, I'm not speaking for you or your situation. I think you were around certain people, and it was like an environment sort of thing, and also like you were talking about like the Jersey Shore vibes, like all that shit was factors. But I think people nowadays, so I'm not talking about you and back then, nowadays, I think a lot of young kids are always looking for like the shortcut for everything. Like they, I talk about it all the time with soccer, like soccer. I talk about, like you can want to be fucking good. You can want to be a great player. You can want to like win awards and be a starter and get a scholarship, but you also got to fucking want to put in like the time and in the work to get there. And I think nowadays, like, somebody maybe hearing this, they hear about, stuff like that, like, yeah, I'm starting to lift this and that. They're looking for a shortcut, but maybe it's not, the best route at the end of the day, just because you can go through something like you went through, or there's a lot of complications with stuff like that. And it seems like nowadays, like, I don't know, some kids don't want to put in the work, so they're looking for like what's the quick way to do it.
yeah, and like I said, there's just not enough really out there. Like, with all these YouTubers and everybody lying about it, it's not helping anybody, right? So it's like, it's not worth it, because there's more complications than just, the heart attack. Like, dry joints. Steroids only help build your muscles, but it does nothing to your ligaments, so,
Yeah,
or your tendons and stuff like that. So, you're prone to a lot of injuries. I played football for a long time, and it created a lot of injuries. I might have looked like I was this healthy guy, but internally I was not. My, like my joints, everything's bad. So even now to this day, like I mean, it could also be with age, but I wake up and I'm like, I'm like 10 minutes, I got to like literally do like these goofy stretches, and like it's a process to get up for sure. So
yeah, I can. I mean, you got like 15-ish years on me, but I'm starting to relate a little bit just from like at the gym. Like I fucked up my shoulder like last week. My hip be bugging sometimes. Like it's just, I
yeah.
think it's just age, wear and tear. But
Oh, for sure.
um,
For you, it's
you
age.
yeah,
Mhm.
of course, of course. But I feel old. I'm like dating somebody significantly younger than me, so I just like it makes me feel old sometimes. But
There you go.
you and I very similar stuff in life. We have a child around the same age. Obviously, you have two kids now. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. How we met, Martin and I, is through a mutual friend, but we were neighbors. His house, you can see his house from where I used to live. House is almost sold now. I don't live there anymore. There might be random cars there. They're not my cars. I don't have specific color cars, but there's a very very small distance between our two houses. So I was just over at his place before. We used to hang out a lot. I feel like we relate on a lot of things. So I wanted to ask this next topic to you about stuff that maybe you've learned through life, just because again we've had a lot of similar like life things, and that's how we've like clicked and stuff over time. But we go through school, right? Whatever level of school you would have went to, if you're listening, and there's a lot of shit you don't learn in school, but you have to learn through life. And I can relate to that. There's like a lot of things that come to mind. I'm like, man, I didn't fucking ever know anything about X topic as an adult. They should have taught us this back in school. What's something that comes to mind for that? Like, hey, like
Um,
I had to learn it, but like, they didn't teach us this.
yeah. They didn't really teach us too much about money management and like how the real world works once you leave school. You like, you leave school and you got this like I'm in a party mentality, and they didn't teach you anything of what to expect other than go to college, get a job and get a house and have families. Well, it's as simple as you think that sounds. It's not that simple. Like they didn't teach us about anything except just nothing with money. So you figure like you get out, you're 18, you're getting credit cards, you're buying a car, and you're working like some shit job somewhere, and next thing you could be in debt,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
same thing, just money in general, man. That's big. I know like money's not everything, but it's a big part of being an adult, and just the money management's not there, and especially for me, just because you know how I grew up, how my family grew up, and not having much, that like as soon as I saw any kind of money, it's like but spend, and not thinking about like the savings in the long term. So definitely money management is a big thing that they need to, I think, teach kids.
Yeah,
Nobody really balances checkbooks anymore. You have the
no,
internet,
no.
stuff like that, but you know what I mean. It's like nobody teaches you how to save, prioritize, and just get everything in order.
I think you do like very little of like, activities in school of like budgeting. And we used to, I relate to that. We used to have to like balance a checkbook that's like fucking evaporated. That's not a thing anymore that people are really doing. Um, you, we have little activities for like economics and like business and like, you know, um, uh budgeting and how to set a budget. It's all like very very generic stuff, and a lot of times I feel like back when we learned it, it's not something that you can really like look back on and be like, oh yeah, I remember learning this. Like this is really going to help me out. Like I feel like it's always like too generic, and they should be more specific to, hey, when you're at this point in your life, you should be looking to do this with, X amount of money, putting money aside for certain things, or budgeting for a house, budgeting for, making car payments, and budgeting for having a kid, and sorting out more real life scenarios that the average person in our demographic might have. So like maybe, maybe it's if it's at Plainfield South, you're talking about, budget stuff and money stuff that has to do with people in the area and what they can do, or have to deal with and stuff like that. I think that that's true because I'm with you too. I think a lot of people can relate to the portion of like, hey, I wasn't making money before, but now I am, and that transition, a lot of people, don't do well with. I think one, and I don't know how much you relate to this, one that stands out to me, and it kind of has to do with money a bit, to a degree, but I think the whole like buying and selling of a house, like I feel like it's like been touched on in school, like kind of, but I knew very fucking little to nothing when it came to buying a house and selling a house. I'm finalizing the process now for selling a house, but like listing and like going back and forth in negotiations and certain terms and doing these appraisals, like all this shit. I feel like I haven't learned this before. I have to like ask the realtor 1,000 questions when in reality, this is a big part of life, buying and selling a
Oh,
house, but I don't think it's covered. I don't know if you relate to that at all either.
yeah, no, you're right. I don't. I mean, obviously, we went to different high schools, so our high school's probably different for sure. But they definitely didn't teach us anything about buying cars, buying houses, anything like that. Like, yeah, same thing with you. Like, we had to ask a bunch of questions, and I mean, so far we haven't sold property like that. So I'm sure when we hit that road, I'm going to be like you. We're going to know nothing about it, you know.
Yeah,
But yeah, the whole buying process and like the whole numbers and like what you can get credit, what you can't, what you can't get credit on and stuff like
should
that. They
approve
definitely don't teach
for.
you any of that. So you're kind of in the
No.
dark, and stuff like that's important too because you don't want to get screwed. You don't want somebody to screw you. And unfortunately, the world we live in, everybody's looking for some kind of way to up somebody with money, something like that. So it's definitely would have been nice to know. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even you just mentioned it before, but I didn't know like your credit score. That's another thing. Your credit score kind of determines what you are approved for when it comes to buying a house. And that goes even further. How do you build a credit score? Like maybe that's touched on in school these days, but like probably not that fucking much. Like we're talking about doing like, you know, algorithms or not algorithms, like random fucking math shit that we'll never
Mhm.
use again. In reality, like that's the stuff we need to know. Anything else for this topic stand out is like something. Hey, like I wish they would have taught us this shit back in school.
Yeah. So a big thing, only because I'm in the trades. I wish that they would have, told everybody their options after high school, other than college. Back when I graduated, they were pushing college pretty hard. And they were pretty much saying that like, if you want to do anything with your life, it has to be college. And it's not knocking anybody who went to college because, there's a lot of people that went to college that did something with their lives. My brother, he's a tax auditor for the state of California. He went for his specific stuff, and he was really good at school. I was not very good at school. They used to tell me if I don't get my act together that I'm going to be the garbage man. But what they don't tell you is that the garbage man makes more than the teacher who's teaching you.
Hell
So
yeah, hell yeah. Garbage men make fucking a lot of money, and it's hard to get those jobs.
it is. So that's my only other thing is just like letting you know your options. Trades out there, that's an option. The garbage man, stuff like that. It's also the thing with college that they didn't really tell you. When I graduated, they were pushing a lot of like these weird college stuff that you can get that really doesn't translate to anything once you graduate.
Yeah,
Like uh, like arts. Like, what are you really going to do with arts or like stuff like that? You're not really going to get a job, or there's not very many jobs that you're going to be able to do that's going to justify the money that you spend for college. Like I said, I thought college was it. And so when I got out of school, I, like everybody else, went to college and quickly realized that it was not for me. I was not a big school guy. I'm not very smart, but uh, 12 years was enough for me. And when I think I lasted like 3 months. In back then, I used to have to take two buses and a train just to get to college, and wasn't for me. So I
yeah.
just wish they told us more about options.
it's interesting when you talk about arts, and I'm not trying to knock anybody that does anything with arts or likes arts or anything like that. But if you have like 500 or like 200 or 500 people in your graduating class, whatever your class size is, the amount of people that are going to use something with like arts, just as an example, in their careers is probably like 1%. You know, it's so small. It's like you waste all this time in the classroom with that. I think that they need to have a mandatory life skills class for like, I don't know, all juniors or something like that, where like you have to learn, which is something I fucking still don't know how to do. I use like fake zip ones. You have to learn how to tie a tie. You have to learn how to change a tire. You have to learn how to properly hold a baby or something like that. Like all this shit, like that you're gonna have to do as you get, older. Just like a life skills class. Like, I mean,
I mean,
I
that
think
should be a basics for freshman year. You know what
it
I
should.
mean?
It should.
I mean, you figure, you're going to be getting a license at 16, and that would be huge. Like you said, change tires, some basic stuff, basic life stuff. There should definitely be a class for that, right next to sex education, right up in there. So,
Yeah, yeah. I wish I would have, learned more about that specific topic. I'm still trying to learn today, but I'll get there slowly but surely when it comes
slowly
to
but
that.
surely.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Or like too quick all the time. Whatever it is. Uh,
I don't think you could fix that, but
yeah, no, I'm trying. I'm just YouTube and stuff. But
dude,
you and I again we talked about before. I mentioned have a kid the same age. You have two children now, so you got a boy and a girl. Um, Kind of goes to like the life skills thing, parenting, something we both had to learn hands on around the same time.
oh
And
yeah,
I think everybody always tells you, they can give you advice about shit as a parent and say like, give little tips and pointers, but it's one of the rare things in life, personally, that I think until you do it, that's the only way you're going to learn. Like I can watch, you know, somebody else handle their kids and everything they do with their kids and write down everything they say, it takes to be a parent. But until you do it, I think it's the only way you learn how to be a parent. Like I think it's the one thing in life that you have to do it. You can't just watch videos or shit like that. You have to do it. So I want to talk about dad life. I think you were wearing that shirt yesterday. I think it said
oh
dad
yeah.
life on your shirt. Yeah, that when I was over and I saw you. So I want to talk about dad life. Something we have in common. So what's we don't, not to get sentimental and stuff, but I gotta ask, what was the best part of dad life? What's the best part?
I mean, just the best part is, it's like you have like this mini me that's, for me, my son, he reminds me just of me, and the best part is just to see him smile, like when I get to do things with him that maybe I didn't get to do as a child, and being able to do that for him and with him, it like, it's awesome, and so every time that he smiles and is happy about something that we do for him is like, it's a really good feeling for sure, and I mean, he definitely changed our lives, like you said, there's really no preparing you for that. I mean, like even if they had a class on that, like when it happened, it was crazy. It was like this incredible feeling, and it's like, you're excited, scared, nervous at the same time. You literally are there, and then they're like, "All right, here you go. See you later." And then you're leaving the
Yep.
hospital with this child, and you're like, "Damn, like what do I do?" And it's been pretty crazy. It's been amazing. It's definitely life changing. It definitely changed my life. Me and my significant other, my wife, we used to go out all the time. And we were like the life of the party. Went out to the bars all the time, drank, and we had these kids, and we just did a full 180. And luckily, like when we had Lorenzo, we met you guys. We both had our kids during the pandemic, which I think made it a little easier for us versus probably other people, because
Yeah.
I noticed a difference between when we had Lorenzo and when I had Olivia. I was home for a majority of the time of Lorenzo when he
Yeah.
was born. I was furloughed at home, and we were hanging out with you guys all the time, and we were raising these kids, and it was a lot easier, being there, being at home, watching, being able to like see his first steps, his all his first, and now that I have Olivia and like the whole like pandemic thing is over or whatever, it's like, I'm not there for all that, and it makes it a little harder. But they definitely don't. You definitely can't be ready for these kids because they definitely change your life for sure.
Absolutely. And we did have we had a pretty good system at one point, back in the day with, had a couple couples with kids. And I agree with you with the portion of like, I was a huge partier back in the day, and your life changes, after you're responsible for one. And can you still go out and have a good time as a parent and stuff? Like, sure, absolutely. Like, I still try to do stuff now and everything, but priorities change drastically when it comes to being a parent, or they should at least. But I made a similar note though, I'm like losing my voice. I made a similar note with the watching them like smile and stuff thing, because I feel like when you're seeing someone develop and you are in charge of them developing and stuff, and you see the good emotions, and you are the reason for those emotions. They're smiling, they're laughing about something, they're excited. You're actively doing something to create that, and I think that's just like insane. At the end of the day, because you're like, I'm responsible for this person, this little child, and when you see them and their emotions are a positive thing, and you can link it to something you're doing, it's a crazy feeling. And again, unless you've been a parent, we can tell you about that, but it's an unreal feeling in my opinion, because you're responsible for that. At the end of the day, you're responsible for a lot of things, but when that's the outcome of stuff, I think that just like means the world, and that's not even a corny thing to say. I don't think.
No, absolutely not.
But
Kids are great. They're great because they're your own, and and you hope that you teach them everything they need to know, and they grow up to be just like you.
to a degree,
Yeah, better than me,
some
hopefully.
aspects,
Yeah.
but not always sunshine and rainbows at the end of the day. So,
Oh,
what about the flip side? Obviously, there's difficult stuff every day, but what's like the toughest part about the dad life?
I would say the toughest part is probably just the discipline, the disciplining them for not listening. Because it's funny because when I was growing up, I would always say like, my parents would yell at me for doing something I'm not supposed to, and I would always be like, yeah, when I have kids, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to punish them for this or for that, and like, it's now that like you have kids and you see how it is, like you have to punish them, otherwise they're not going to listen. So I think the hardest part is punishing. I'm a little hard, obviously, on Lorenzo more than Olivia right now. I mean, Olivia is my daughter, so it might be different when she gets older. I may not be as hard.
She's also like very little right now.
Very little, yeah, but Lorenzo,
How old is Olivia?
6 months.
All right, yeah, you're not
Yeah,
about
I'm
I'm
not
about to
giving
beat
her.
your ass, Olivia.
No, not yet. But my son right now, he's he gets the business sometimes for sure. But just you have to teach them, and everybody does it differently. I'm very old school when it comes to my kids, so like I'm still on the like you need to listen, or like we call them pow pows. I'm still gonna give you a pow pow if you're not listening, because
Yeah,
in the beginning it was very hard because I would have to do it a lot, and I've noticed now, like with the counting system, I do the counting system, 1, 2, 3, and
yeah.
he'll let me get to 3, and the moment I take a couple steps at him,
He's
he'll
like,
start
no,
running,
no,
like,
no.
no, 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 dad, so like I don't have to give as many now, so I it was very hard in the beginning. It was very hard to do. It's these little kids, and you love them to pieces, and you don't want to have to do that, but I got it all out of the way in the beginning, and it's worked. And sometimes he still doesn't listen, so I got to get in there. But
Yeah,
that's his mother's there to save him sometimes. She'll do it sometimes, but that's probably the toughest part. And then just I don't know. I mean, just I know it's I'm thinking like way ahead of time, but like you see things on the news and you see things that happen all the time. And I think the toughest part is just not knowing, like just being scared, I guess. Like, you don't,
Yeah.
not to like think like that, but you don't want anything to happen to your kid, and
Yeah.
when I think about it now, it's like, I don't know what I would do, what would happen. Like, but it's just tough stuff. It's tough out there.
Yeah, I know
And
for Mila, I can relate to the discipline part sometimes, just because she can be the happiest little girl in the world one minute, and then the next minute she's like throwing in a massive tantrum and yelling at everybody, and being kind of mean to and not listening and stuff like that. So it is that like border of the discipline and having to step in like that. But also that second part, that something that really is always on the back of your mind, I think, as a parent, and you don't want to think negatively about what things that can happen, and you don't want to like live in fear of something happen. But all you do is you turn on the news, or you go on Facebook or TikTok, and you see like bad shit all the time. And I think the phrase of like, oh, you take I'd take a bullet for somebody, or I'd like die for somebody. Like, you used to think that was corny or an exaggeration back in the day, but when you're a parent, I mean, that's completely clear. Like, you would die for your kid, at the
oh,
end of the day, and you would
100%.
tear down houses and fucking go to jail, like all this shit for your kid. You do anything for your kid at the end of the day. So it's always like, you know, you never really understand how much somebody can mean to you. You can love somebody. You can love your husband or your wife or your girlfriend or your mom or your dad or your grandpa. There's nothing like loving your kid, man, at the end of the day.
Oh yeah.
But what I thought about though was, I think it's tough being in charge of development stages. I think everybody gets very caught up in like the kids got to do this at this stage in their life and stuff, and you're in charge of helping them walk, and then making sure that they're speaking the right way, and then eventually like sleeping in their own bed and potty training. Like, these are all things that we're actively going through or we already went through. But that's a tough part, because no one else is going to teach your kids those things. I mean, they're going to learn things on their own, and they're going to pick up things and roll with things. But at the end of the day, if like your kid never
Mhm.
gets potty trained, everyone's gonna be looking at you. If your kid
Oh yeah.
never speaks, everyone's gonna be looking at you. If they're still sleeping in a crib and they're 3 years old, people are gonna be looking at you. So I think that's a tough part, just because you are responsible for those stages of your kid's life. And you and I, no one knows if you were potty trained at 6 months and I was potty trained at 5 years old or something like that. No one knows, and it doesn't matter later. But at the same point, like, the parents are responsible for those things. And I think that's kind of slept on. That's a little bit of pressure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And like you were saying, I mean, everybody's different, so definitely, like, as you're training your own child, like, don't let other people discourage you because maybe their kid's doing something that yours is not. You know, they're all going to develop differently. But at the end of the day, like you said, it will be on you. But like, you know, there's no like definitive time frame on these things, right? So like a lot of like the stuff like they're walking, like there's nothing really you could do for that. That's just on their own. You could help them or
Yeah.
whatever. And so definitely don't look at somebody else racing their kids and think that you're like behind or anything like that, because maybe your kid's not. And that's one thing that I have to think about really quickly, because like Lorenzo, he like flew. I
Yeah.
felt
He
like,
did. He did.
yeah, I felt like he like learned things really fast, and he did things really fast that, like, I had to like kind of put that in my mind, like that, that's not always normal. Like, I got my daughter now, like I don't want to in the back of my mind be like, is something wrong with her because,
Yeah.
maybe Lorenzo did something at this point in his life and she hasn't, or anything like that. So, I mean, that's just one thing you have to think about. They're all going to be different, and don't let other people's kids discourage you. And they'll get there in their own time. But stuff like potty training and stuff like that, like, yeah, for sure, you got to do it. And that's even tough on its own. We've been going back and forth with Lorenzo, for instance, and like there'll be
Yeah.
like a week where he'll do it, and then there'll just be a day where he's like, eh, yeah, I went to the
Not
bathroom in
feeling
my
it.
pants. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish
Yeah.
I could be in deep sleep and be like, I don't want to get up. But can't do that.
That's
So
that's what Anthony used to do. He used to just be in deep sleep and just like pee in the corner of the room and stuff. Like, it just
somehow I can see that. I can picture that coming from Anthony for sure.
yeah, just very stubborn. But yeah, Lorenzo, very 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 fast with everything. He reminded me a lot about or a lot of my brother Dominic. Like Dominic picked up everything like so fast in life. Like he was like doing shit so fast that like riding bikes like way early and like working on random shit. Like Dominic, like just like the maybe not always like the book smart shit, but like just like the developmental stuff. Dominic was so fast on. That reminded me a bit of Lorenzo. And on the opposite spectrum, we had to take Mila to speech classes and stuff, and you worry about it, but now looking backwards, I'm thinking to myself like now she won't stop talking, and maybe if you're a parent out there that might be dealing with something, oh, your kid's delayed in speech or potty training, or won't sleep in their own bed, whatever it is, you're gonna look back one day and be like, fuck, like this kid won't stop talking. This kid, does everything on their own. It's not going to matter down the road. So it's just everybody's on their own path, and it just is what it is with that. But dad life, man, you're rocking the shirt. I rock some stuff pretty often. I think it means a lot to the both of us. And I will say I'll give you credit too, because there's a lot of fucking bad dads out there, and to me. I'm not gonna. To me, that's one of the like lowest things I think you can do in life, in a man's perspective, is to be an absent father. So, maybe some dads are like, you know, do different things at different levels or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think like being someone present in your kid's life in helping with their development and being there every day is a huge credit to a lot of people, because you see a lot of fucking guys out there that are not there for their kids, and I think that's the lowest fucking thing you can do at the end of the day.
And to me, that's so crazy because I think about, like, if I didn't have my kids, or I didn't have the ability or option to see them all the time, like, and I can't even like put that into my mind, like how someone could do that. And like, I'll travel for work here and there, and I'm calling them every day, 2-3 times a day, FaceTime.
Yeah,
Like, I just want to be there. And I think I get a lot of that too from my dad, because my parents got divorced when I was 5, and my dad never left. Like he was there every other weekend for sure. Always made sure he was there. He never abandoned us, and he had very little, but whatever little he had, he gave to us when it was our turn to be with him. And
yeah,
to the point where I think I was either 17 or 18, and I moved in with him. And he was like a big part of he was a big part of my life, and how I wanted to be as a dad. And so, you know, I I like all I can do is try to make him proud, and him seeing
yeah,
the way I'm with my kids, and they mean the world to me. So
yeah. I and personally maybe can relate to something you just said too. Obviously, divorce is finalized, everything's done with that. But we have 50-50 custody of Mila, and you know I enjoy my time I spend with her, but I'm not gonna say that it doesn't like hurt not to see her on certain days. Like I'm not being corny. I'm not like saying it to sound a certain way, but like the other day, no bullshit, I'm driving home to go to where I'm at right now, and I'm like looking back in the car seat, she ain't there, and like that shit hurts, at the end of the day, because I want to be there for my kid. I want to be a great dad. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Like I want to be all these fucking things in life. I want to be like, good at my job and a fantasy person and like a good soccer coach and a good whatever. but I want to be a good dad at the end of the day. And all this shit has nothing to do with anybody else when I'm like saying these things, but myself and you and in that. So I'm not like adding anybody when it comes to that. But that's where I get lost with like, you know, people that don't want that. You know, I'm going through a phase where I'm only getting 50% of it, and it fucking hurts sometimes, and it kills me. So I'll never understand the, you know, how people can be absent like that, because me at 50%, it fucking kills me, you know. But
Yeah, I can only imagine.
yeah, but all right. So less sad, less deep stuff with the dad stuff. I want to end this podcast. You and I, we both like superhero stuff. You're rocking a Superman shirt. I know you got some tattoos. I got some tattoos. We both got, you know, superhero tattoos, and we enjoy the movies and shit like that. We got that in common. So if you want to describe why, you could do that briefly, but it's going to be a quick speed round to close off the podcast here. It's going to be superhero battles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a speed round. I'm going to say this guy or that guy in a fight. These guys fight one time. Who wins? I'm not going to give you any details, where they're at, the circumstances. I'm going to say two different guys. You tell me who wins, and then I'm going to go to the next guy. Sound good?
Sure.
Run it. Let's do it. So first one on the list here, I'm mixing Marvel and DC too, because fucking why not? I only got a couple here, but first one on the list, I'm gonna go Spider-Man versus Batman.
Spider-Man.
All right, Spider-Man versus Batman. Martin goes Spider-Man. So go straight to the next one, Spider-Man versus Captain America.
Spider-Man.
All right, so we got Spider-Man 2-0 right now.
I mean, I think we saw them win at the movie. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. It was in there. I'm gonna tug at your heartstrings a little bit. I think this is Lorenzo's guy, but I'm gonna go Spider-Man versus Hulk.
Hulk, easy.
Oh, all right, all right. So you're saying then, by default, then that Hulk beats Batman and Captain America.
Oh yeah.
All right. So it's all right. So we'll go to the next guy. So Hulk is the winner. So he keeps going here. Hulk versus Black Panther.
Hulk.
All right. So we got Hulk again. Hulk versus Deadpool.
Hulk.
All right. Hulk versus Doctor Strange. I like when you got to think about it. Some of these are too quick, so I like it.
It's tough. It's tough because Doctor Strange, he's a beast. We saw in his movie, so I want to say the Hulk because he's just brute force, but I'm gonna stick with the Hulk on this one, just because I don't think the Hulk can die.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
You know?
So Hulk is still rolling here. Hulk versus Thor.
Hulk.
Hey, show the camera. What'd you have of Thor? It's like a controller holder or something like that.
The controller holder. That's my boy.
He's going against him. But you're staying with Hulk.
I'm gonna say Thor on that one, maybe, because I don't think can Thor die. I don't think Thor could die.
I don't know.
And he, you know, are we talking Hulk post Hulk or this smart Hulk? Because he destroys smart Hulk.
I'm gonna say just Hulk in his true form, like
true
the
form.
fucking
like
badass form.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to probably stick with Hulk.
All right, sticking with Hulk.
Yeah.
All right, I got two more. I got two more on this list. So Hulk or Wolverine.
Wolverine, I think.
All right, you kept saying he can't die, and that kind of goes up Wolverine's alley.
Yeah, you say he can't die, but then you think of Wolverine and his steel cuts anything. So
yeah,
could he die if he cuts his head off? I don't know.
All right, last one then. So we got Wolverine left standing. Superman. Who is it?
I think Superman wins.
All right,
Superman beats all.
So Superman beats everybody on that list that we just mentioned.
Oh yeah.
Is there anybody that you'd say, you know what, he beats Superman? And any character.
Any character out there that beats him. I would say the Scarlet Witch, because Superman is weak against magic. So, and as we've seen, Scarlet Witch she's a bad mother. So.
All right. Very good. Had to do it. Had to do a speed round like that to end things off here, and end on a light note. But That'll do it for this episode 10. Stick to the script. Make sure if you like this, subscribe wherever you listen to it on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Go tell like 3 friends, spread the word. The show's been popping. It's been good. Martin, any closing thoughts? Could be anything as we finish this last episode here.
Yeah, I just want, in case there's any confusion between these young guys, MJ is the GOAT. LeBron doesn't touch him. MJ's the GOAT, and Brady's the GOAT. So Mahomes needs to step back too. So,
all right, last question. We won't dig into it either. Won't dig into it either. If you had to make a GOAT list, who is higher on the list? Is it Michael Jordan or is it Tom Brady? I love it. I love putting you on the spot like that.
I would say no disrespect to MJ, but I would say Tom Brady because after him, not to get into it, but a lot has changed in the NFL because of Brady. I think just with rules and things like that. So I would say Brady. GOAT. But MJ's right there.
All right. I'll have to think.
And LeBron is nowhere on the list. So
LeBron's like number 4, I think, on that list.
He's got to go further down. But
all right. We'll close it right there. Thank you guys for listening. Again, stick to the Skrip podcast. Tell your fucking friends about it. Good show. Enjoy the rest of the week.